Hi, it's Rupert Hine here from Action Coach near Kinross, and I'm joined today by Laura Shields of Monarch Legal. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell us, Laura, who or what are Monarch Legal?
So, Monarch Legal are an estate agency and a conveyancing firm. So, we cover the whole of Scotland. So, essentially, we cover all the legal aspects of buying, selling, remortgaging, or transferring property.
It's a fairly large and broad-ranging scope of things you've got there. So how did you get into creating Monarch in the first place?
So, I've worked in property really since I left higher education. I had always worked in estate agency and new builds estate agency in particular, and then moved on to working for a kind of solicitor estate agent. And from that last employed role, I kind of saw a need for something newer, a bit more personable, to disrupt the market a little bit. And that was how Monarch Legal came into existence.
Fantastic. So you talk about that sort of fresh approach to real estate. What what is it that sets Monarch apart from everyone else in the market?
Well, in conveyancing, I think it's fair to say that it had become quite antiquated, and some of the larger firms, it was even a bit factory-like. So there was kind of lack of a personal relationship with the solicitor who's acting for you when buying and selling. And, whenever you are buying or selling a property, it's the biggest, most stressful purchase that you'll make in your life. Anything that can be done to make that process a bit easier is greatly welcomed by all the clients. So that's something that we made sure that we were offering from the offset, and that was kind of the goal of the business, was to make that more accessible for people.
So how do you go about doing that? I mean, we often talk about creating things that are more customer centric, but when you boil it down into the practicalities, how do you go about giving people that experience that you've set out to deliver?
So I think there's two things that make a difference. The first thing is that we've made quite a lot of changes to the business in terms of technology, to make the process behind the scenes more streamlined, which means that the conveyancers have got more opportunity to actually pick up the phone, speak to the clients, have the clients in, and it keeps things kind of moving forward quite nicely, and clients getting regular updates. The other side of, or the other thing that makes a big difference, is the people. So the staff that we have in place are, they're willing to go over and above for the clients, and they do have that, no nonsense, but relatable way of speaking to the clients, which is really greatly received. We deal a lot with like first time buyers, and there's the team are brilliant with kind of hand holding people through the process, so that the client knows exactly what is happening at every point of the transaction. And we've embraced more modern ways of communicating with the clients as well. So most clients prefer to get their updates via WhatsApp, which is a change from what would have been happening 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting the way that communications change, and 40 years ago it would have been the phone and hard letters, and you,
Exactly.
most people don't do a lot of either nowadays.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And I mean, people working remotely means that a majority of the transactions are done without the clients ever actually having to come into the offices to meet with the solicitor. Um, which some people prefer, some people still want to come in, but at least the technology allows that to happen.
Absolutely. So, a lot of that relies on you having the right people in the right seat.
Absolutely.
How have you found, or what have you found the most effective in helping you select the right people to sit in those seats?
Well, it's definitely been something that we've had to hone since we started, to get the right team in place. Um, Essentially, I have learned that I can't do everything, and that I'm probably naturally a bit of a control freak. So it's important to me to make sure that I've got the right people the firm who know what they're doing, and I can trust to, delegate bits of work to, or that I know are going to reflect well on the business to the clients and look after the clients. I think it was Richard Branson had said that if you look after the team, then they look after the clients. That's what we like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to think of it as a bit of a sort of virtuous circle. You know, most business owners, unfortunately, are still trying to juggle looking after the customers, looking after the team, looking after the business.
Yeah,
Um, but if you look after the team, then the team can look after the customers, and the customers can look after the business, and the business can look after you. So
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's we have to look after the staff, and we've started as a brand new business in an industry where lots of the firms have been around for tens, hundreds of years. It's important for us to be able to offer something to the staff so that they want to come and work at a new firm. So that's something that I've been quite mindful of from the outset.
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's quite a daunting thing sometimes starting a business from scratch.
Absolutely.
What would you say is the biggest learning that you've had that you could share with others who are in a similar position of thinking about doing just that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the importance of resilience and adaptability. Challenges are unavoidable, but it's about how you deal with the challenges that you're presented with, and that is what is really going to drive the success. No business will just be plain sailing and never encounter any problems along the way or bumps in the road. But it's about how you then, learn from these things that crop up, and how you deal with them at the time. It's having a strong team around and a good network of support really kind of lets you learn from the experiences that you have. But I think it's you do have to take risks sometimes, and you're right that the thought of starting a business can be daunting, but you just have to make the first step, and it's amazing how supportive people will be when you actually do take the leap and start the business.
Absolutely, and it can be incredibly satisfying, but it's more of a roller coaster than.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you it's always easy. We've certainly had our fair share of issues along the way, and it's just something that naturally will happen in business. But it's about, like I said, it's how you deal with the problems that present themselves. That's how you will really define the success of the business.
Absolutely. So, in your what, just over 3 years into your business journey with
Yes,
Monarch,
that's right.
you've got a huge amount of expertise between yourself and the team that you've assembled around yourself. What's next? Where should we look out for Monarch in the next few years?
Well, we do have some big plans for the next few years. Obviously we're still relatively new, in comparison to some of the other firms that we are competing against. But in our 3 years, 100% of our business has come from recommendations, or word of mouth. We haven't gone out with any kind of paid for marketing. So that is something that is another kind of string to our bow that we will be making a push of in 2025 and beyond. So if you haven't heard of Monarch yet, it will be everywhere shortly. So that's something that we are planning to do. At the moment, we've got an office. We've opened an office in Glasgow and Dundee. Geographical expansion is something that we're potentially looking to do in the next kind of 5 years. And otherwise, we're really just looking to grow our client base. We're kind of getting to the point now where we're having clients return to us, which is quite nice. So they might have bought with us a couple of years ago, and now they're looking to move again. So we're now getting returning business. But we are constantly working on building relationships with other property professionals, whether that's estate agents or mortgage advisors, to kind of grow our client base that way and increase our caseload.
Fantastic. And if you had to cast your mind back to the 18-year-old Laura starting out on her journey, what's what's the one piece of advice you'd give her?
I would have to say probably trust the process. Success doesn't happen overnight. And it's like I said, there's plenty of problems that crop up along the way. So I would say trust the process, kind of, stay true to your own integrity and values, and that will see you through. I'd probably also say that start, being financially disciplined early on, and it will pay off later.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean it's interesting how many business owners haven't taken that last lesson to heart. What
Yes.
what do you find's the bare minimum that you would have in any business you're running from a financial management point of view?
Well, it's so important to just keep an eye on the cash flow at all times, especially in a business like ours where it's it's not just a case of having one business bank account where you can just log in and check what the balance is on that day. It's constantly changing with transactions completing daily. It's something that you have to have such a good grip on, because it's how so many businesses fail early on, because it's easy to get carried away and become quite spend happy. You've got to keep an eye on that, otherwise that's the easiest way just to run into trouble early days. And having a weekly, monthly report to find out exactly where you're at is just so key, to allow you to plan and make projections for the future as well.
Absolutely, and it's um, lots of people keep half an eye on the revenue and and maybe the bank balance and little else, but that revenue is just, in many ways, it's just vanity. It's the profitability and particularly the cash flow and knowing
Yeah,
what to expect
absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
critical. So
And it's the timings of it as well. I mean, we work in an industry where dates of entry are getting, well, missives are concluded so much later on in the process that dates of entry get pushed back and forward, and they are not always set in stone from the very beginning of the transaction. So you have to have a bit of kind of flexibility in the cash flow to be able to accommodate when the fees will be coming in.
yeah.
It's not definitive that yes, that fee will come in on the day until it's in contract, which happens quite late on in the process.
How much do you find that people's expectations of timelines have got shorter?
Well, people's expectations have got, after COVID, I think it is, the market was on fire, and there was an expectations on a seller's point of view of what price they will get for the property and how long it will take to get a mortgage offer. Mortgage offers are what usually holds up the conclusion of missives, but missives are the kind of key part, even versus the Scottish and English system. Once it's in contract and the missives, then the date of entry is 99% happening. So that allows people a bit of comfort and able to plan removals, and they know that the move is happening on that date. But the expectation is that as soon as you've got an offer accepted, we want to progress with missives. So there's a bit of education missing in that respect, which is something that is really important for us to have that communication with the clients earlier on, so that their expectations are set to something that's going to be more realistic.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's you're working with a legal system that has some constraints on how fast you can do stuff, and people
Yes.
who want everything finished yesterday. And in most of life, the days where you went to have a purchase and it took you to go somewhere and pick it up, and now you sort of press a button and it arrives. Uh,
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
interesting.
Exactly. But I think the key is, communicating with the client so that they're not chasing you for updates, and they already know exactly what stage the transaction is at.
And how do you make sure that you are doing that communicating effectively?
So we've changed our systems, our tech systems in the background, so that we use a system where it will flag up if we haven't spoken to the client in that week. The conveyancer will have a notification that says that they need to contact that client. So there's a minimum expectation of how often the clients are contacted. So even if there's nothing happened that week, and we're maybe waiting on loan papers or waiting on searches or reports from elsewhere, the client is still getting an update to say that that's what is happening and that's what we're waiting on, so that the client isn't then having to call us and thinking that we're just sitting on the file. So the client's got a bit of comfort in that sense, that we are on it, and keeping them up to date when, as and when things do happen.
Fantastic. Look, it's been brilliant talking to you and hearing about that fresh approach and how you're bucking the industry and getting some change into the traditional world of real estate. Thank you very much for joining us, and
No problem.
very best of luck for future expansion.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much for having me.